All right, hey everybody, welcome to Kent with Bent number 116. This is Spinal Kent. I hope you guys enjoyed. The new stream starts soon. I figured it was time for me to actually have a countdown so that people know how long it's going to be, rather than just tuning in and having to guess. It's pretty much always been 3 minutes, but you know what? I took like 4 days of just nonstop rendering to make that.
Jeez.
So, yeah,
Hard at work,
well,
Dapper.
yeah, that's
What's
me.
his name?
Um, yeah, I also spent about 9 hours today working on the next video. So,
That's a long time, too.
yep. It's actually also rendering right now. So, if you would like to help render my projects, there are instructions in the description. There's a section called How to Render for Me. And you, too, could render frames for the Dapper Dinosaur channel. And even if they end up not being my frames, because sometimes you get allocated someone else's frames, they still add to my ability to get my frames done as soon as possible. So, it will run your computer, right? It'll use either your CPU or your GPU if you decide to do that, depending on which one you select. So, do be aware of that. It's not technically free. It'll slightly increase your electricity bill, about as much as running a video game.
I'm running it right now, so...
Me too, actually.
It's not that bad.
Yeah, it's not really that bad. I don't do it while I'm playing a video game, though, because that usually drops my frame rates much too low. But anyway, we're not really here for that. We're here for Kent with Bent. And, of course, Sam Talbert, who's been a member for 9 months and is at the emulate level, says, AIG is a satchel of odorous trouser snakes. And for that, we will take our first drink. Thank you very much.
Mm.
And DM verifying the mystery flesh bit says running right now. Sheepit, presumably. Pretty much have it running 24/7. That is really appreciated. That actually helps a lot. All right, so Bent,
Yes.
what are we here for?
Kent, Uncle Kent, no relation.
Uncle Kent, no relation. Now he's telling us about how there are totally dinosaurs living right now that aren't birds, and he's currently in the middle of talking about Mokele Mbembe and how maybe it's an amphibian.
Maybe.
Even though if it's a dinosaur, it's definitely not an amphibian, and we can tell the difference because it's not that hard to tell the difference between an amphibian and a reptile skeleton, because they're not very similar, believe it or not.
It's an interesting point. I should look up how to do that sometime.
Yeah, right? Like, if you were going to go around telling people that you were an expert on, like, say, amphibians and the Bible, maybe you would want to know what an amphibian is. Yeah. Yeah, weird. Huh. Anyway, so for those of you who don't know, we do this as a kind of a drinking show. And so we have some rules. You already saw one of them. If anyone super chats or membership milestone chats that AIG is a bag of dicks, we'll take a drink for that. Now, we have a few more. One is that if you super chat or membership milestone chat, and it includes one of the channel-specific 3 kaiju emojis, we got Godzilla, we got King Ghidorah, and we got Mothra. If you super chat one of those, we'll take a drink for that. Or a milestone chat, right? But you do have to be a channel member to do that. Now, we will also take a drink if Kent Hovind says something that's just too stupid. Or if he tells a joke that doesn't land, or a story that didn't happen. So, for example, if he, say, mixes up a conversation he had with his shampoo bottle in the shower one day with a conversation that he had, or with a hypothetical conversation that he could have had on an airplane with a Berkeley professor of something or other, we'll take a drink for that. We'll also take a drink anytime Kent Hovind mentions the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or various prominent members, or various historically significant activities that they got up to, especially in the early to mid-20th century. Take a drink for that. That's often called the Godwin's Law drink.
Yeah.
Now, we'll also drink for something called Trojan source, which is where if Kent cites a source and we check the source, and not only does it fail to support his claim, but it actively contradicts his claim, take a drink for Trojan source. We will also take a drink if either Bent or I can successfully predict what Kent Hovind's next point is going to be when it's a little bit iffy, what he's going to say next. Now, we will also take a drink for every gifted membership. So you can gift memberships in the same place that you send super chats. And what that'll do is it'll assign the number of random people to get free memberships for a month. There's no automatic renewal on that. They don't even have to give YouTube a credit card number or anything. They just get it for a month. It gives them an alert when it wears out, but you can just click don't continue or whatever. So there's no obligation for them. And so we will do one for each of those gifted, up to about like 30 per in a batch, because you can go all the way like to, I don't even know what the highest number is. I know you can go to 50. I think you can go higher. But if you do that, we'll probably just finish the drink and go get a new one. And let's see. I think, am I forgetting it? What am I forgetting? I feel like
Did you mention when Kent gets something right?
I did not, because it happens so rarely. Yes, if Kent gets something factually correct, and that factually correct thing actually comes out of his brain, isn't just a quotation from someone else, he has to actually know this thing, then we will take a drink for him getting something right. Now, we usually get a little bit more lenient by the end of the show, just so we get a few of those triggers in. Oh! And look at that. We will take a drink if we audibly hear Godzilla or Mothra come by, and we just heard Mothra, so that means we take a drink. Or sorry, Godzilla. We heard it. So we take a drink for Godzilla. Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of Royland Hutchins, who's been a member for 16 months, is at the tetrapod level, Royland membership milestone chats that pelagic tunicket love dapper, which that may well be true, but pelagic tunicates are gross, and I don't want any of them. And there's a Godzilla emoji, so we will take a drink for the next Godzilla. Now, last but not least, we have a special drink trigger right now, which is a temporary drink trigger, which will be changing eventually. And it is that we will drink whenever the number on the fundraiser goes up. Now, I want to tell you that this is a fundraiser for Kent Hovind here. And basically, Kent Hovind has some pretty serious car troubles right now. Basically, you need a new transmission.
Yeah, a new to me transmission.
Okay.
They're never cheap. They're super expensive.
That is correct. And the number did just go up, so we're taking a drink. Nice. That is linked both in the description as well as the pinned chat. So if you are feeling so inclined, please help us out. I think we just passed the 3/4 mark on that fundraiser. And also, you're hoping to get that car back in the next few days, right?
Hopefully tomorrow, but I don't have any idea. Really, as early as tomorrow, it could still be a while.
Okay.
So I need to call and find out. But, yeah.
All right. Well, let's see what Kent has for us now that we've covered all the drink triggers. Oh, by the way, if you do give, and I haven't refreshed the cache for this website because it doesn't refresh automatically, please just tag me and let me know, and then I can refresh it and we can drink for that. So, yeah. Okay, here we go.
So it could be he didn't get a good enough view. He said the had a long neck and a small head.
I want to point out that this person who's trying to describe a sauropod, first thing he points out, long neck, small head. You know what the description of Behemoth and Job that everyone, or all the creationists, I should say is a sauropod never mentions?
Never mentions a long neck.
No, it doesn't. Not even once. Which is weird.
Or a small head.
Yeah, or a small head for that matter, yeah. Interesting, isn't it?
Very interesting. They must have all forgotten about it.
Yeah, just ignore the most salient feature of a sauropod. Just
not ignore, they forgot about it.
Okay, fair enough. They forgot. Well, that's more understandable. Okay.
Saw it, Kia, his wife, saw it, and on several occasions, and they heard it making a tremendous roar. Now, as far as I know, the only recording available, and I have it in our archives here somewhere, is about a 4 or 5 minute recording that they made of a tape recorder of this creature roaring at night. And
if I had a dime for every random BS recording that someone made in the woods of some sound that they don't know what it is, I would probably be a very wealthy dinosaur.
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever seen any of those Bigfoot shows where they're like, oh, we're going to go squatching tonight, and then they just record whatever weird sounds happen in the woods, and they're like, that was a Bigfoot right there. And it's like, how do you know that? Did you see a Bigfoot?
They don't know it, they just state it.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know what that sound is, so it must be a Sasquatch. Yeah. Now, imagine doing that, but in a swamp that you're even less familiar with because you don't live there. You're just visiting on a different continent. And then you're just like, well, that must have been a dinosaur. That was Mokele Mbembe. Couldn't have been anything else.
Got it. First try.
Yeah, seriously. See, the thing is, in order to say that something lives here because of an audio recording, you first have to establish that the sound that you're recording is actually coming from that animal. Which means you can only use audio recordings like that after first confirming the presence of this animal anywhere. Then you can later listen for that sound to see where else it might be. You can't just be like, oh, I caught a mysterious sound. Therefore, dinosaurs exist in the Congo in the form of sauropods. That's not how it works.
It's ridiculous.
Oh, Shipfish donated. Thank you very much, Shipfish. Let me double check. For some reason, it didn't go up, but I will keep rechecking. And when it goes up, we will make sure to take a drink for that. Thank you very much. Too Young to Feel Sold for $10 says 10 for Dabber and 20 for Bent. Richards, and 20 for Bent. Love. Richards in a bag can be referred to as AIG. Nice. We will take a drink for that. Dougie D says, first time catching this live. Love you, Dapper D. Thank you very much, Dougie D. Also, I like that last, I like both of the initials right there, DD. I can't imagine why I might like those initials, but I do. Very, very nice initials. So, some of the best initials, it might be said.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, pretty good. Now, I do want to say, we have vastly fewer likes than we have viewers, so Bilbo might have to come out pretty soon. So, if you want to keep Bilbo away, make sure you hit like. All right, here we go.
It was dark, they couldn't get video footage, but they said it would go and then a slapping sound. Strangest thing they'd ever heard. And when you listen to the tape, you'll say, man, that sounds strange. They checked the voice print of this, whatever it was, because they just turned the tape recorder on and let it record while this creature is making its roaring sound. They couldn't even see it. They checked it with all sorts of other animals. You know, what's close to this anyway? What makes this sound? They found it was reasonably close voice print to, I think, a gecko lizard or some lizard, that when it roars, the skin on its throat puffs out, and then the skin slaps back.
Okay, so let me get this straight. Upon checking what this sounded like, you found out that it sounded like a gecko, a known animal. And your conclusion was not, well, maybe we've recorded a gecko unbeknownst to us. No.
Of course not.
Your conclusion, oh, there it is. It just went up, so we will take a drink for that. Thank you very much.
It must be a dinosaur.
It must be. It must be a heretofore unknown sauropod. That
sounds like a gecko.
Yeah, that sounds like a gecko.
And, well, we don't know what it looks like because we've never seen it.
Right, but you know what I'm going to guess it looks like?
A gecko?
Yeah, I'm going to guess it looks like a gecko.
Yeah.
I love these cryptozoology stories because they're always founded on just nothing, right? It's like, oh, we recorded this weird sound. Yeah, sure, it sounds like a bear, but I'm pretty sure it was Sasquatch.
Right.
Like, yeah, I mean, yeah, bears do live around here. And yeah, I mean, I have bad eyesight and it was late at night, but still, it was walking on two legs, like bears sometimes do. Definitely a Sasquatch. Oh, okay, sure. All right, here we go.
Okay.
It's the closest they could find, so they guess it might be some kind of giant reptile making this noise.
Right.
Yeah, Kent. Some geckos can get fairly large. They can be like the size of your hand. And they can be deceptively loud because, that whole throat pouch he was talking about, that serves to amplify things. It's like, Ben, you play guitar.
A little bit, yeah.
You know how when you have your classical guitar, right, there's that big, resonance chamber with the...
Yes.
Yeah, that's what that pouch is.
Okay.
So...
That makes it much louder then.
Yeah, exactly. The whole point of the pouch is the same as a resonance chamber on a guitar. It makes the whole thing louder. So, yeah, it was probably a decent-sized gecko.
But Herman and his wife Kia said they heard the creature. Many other members of the expedition, including government officials from the Republic of Congo, saw it and heard it.
Government official.
Man, from the Republic of Congo, the most trustworthy government on Earth. Well known for their reputation of absolute lack of corruption, complete lack of human rights violations, just up and up, outstanding government officials right there. It's like when people point out, oh, hey, Teddy Roosevelt saw a Bigfoot. Okay, great.
Sure he did.
I know he claimed to, but what do I care? It's not evidence that just because he's a government official, even one as high office as the President of the United States. Doesn't matter. Oh, speaking of the President of the United States, we have a new reason to celebrate today. It's Indictment Day again.
Yay!
Yay! We're gonna take a drink
for that.
Yeah, we're gonna drink for Indictment Day. For those of you who might be living under a rock, or just not in the USA and therefore not following news here, the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, has been indicted on 4 counts, including various conspiracy charges, as well as obstruction of an official government proceeding. And he was the only person charged in this indictment, although chances are that other individual indictments for other co-conspirators are coming. And, yeah, he is probably going to be... that trial has a fair chance of being over before the next presidential election, which might mean that Donald Trump might spend some of his time running for president behind bars in federal prison. Fingers crossed. Yeah, it would be nice. I can't believe I forgot to announce that at the beginning. It's like the biggest news. It's Indictment Day. Ah, yeah, that's true. All right. Kent knows how indictments go. He's been indicted more than once, hasn't he? 3 times, I believe. Interesting. So, something he has in common with the former president there.
I bet he's proud.
Yeah, well, it was funny because he also has something in common with the Tiger King. More than one thing. They both run dangerous theme parks, or well, Tiger King used to, where injuries, up to and including death, have occurred. And they both were hoping that President Trump would pardon them for some reason, while both not realizing that accepting a pardon is an admission of guilt, while also trying to maintain their innocence. Which is just a whole lot of wonderful silliness that, yeah. Yeah, you didn't think that Joe Exotic and Kent Hovind would have that much in common, did you? Turns out...
Not that surprised.
Yeah, they do. Also, they might have in common that they both occasionally take gay lovers, but I can't technically prove it for Kent, so...
Here's a story from the Bradenton, or Boston.
I also wouldn't point it out, except that Kent Hovind's a raging homophobe.
Right.
Herald newspaper about how that there's an expedition going into the swamp again.
Oh, okay, so this was in... When did he say it was?
I don't.
I thought he said something like 1960 something or something. I don't know. Let's just say it was brand new. I feel like by now, if they had actually found a sauropod dinosaur, we'd have known about that.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, remember how John Morris Pendleton, rest in peace, mounted an expedition into the jungles of South America to find a pterosaur, and then we just never heard anything about that? It's probably not because of a successful hunt. I feel like if it had been successful, we probably would have heard about that. So, at this point, I'm going to say, Kent, it's been a while. I know that we're talking to you from the far future, from your perspective. But, yeah, has not turned out very well. Inkboy for €2 says, if you bag tangerine color presidents, you get AIG. Oh, that's great. Although, it's kind of unfortunate that Nixon already took the Tricky Dick nickname. Would have been so good for 45. Oh well. Here we go.
There have probably been 30 expeditions into that swamp in the last 20 years trying to photograph or capture one of these creatures.
They've all failed.
Mm-hmm. Chuck Holcomb from North Alabama has gotten permission to go in there with a blimp.
Into a jungle where basically the tree canopy covers everything so you can't see the ground except in areas of broad rivers? Okay, sure, a blimp.
I'm all for blimps, but why would you do that?
I don't even know, man.
Why?
A blimp.
Oh, golly.
Alex Merkel says, just call him President Dump. Maybe. I'm not a big fan of making like weird puns out of people's names, mostly because most of the people I know of who do that kind of thing are people I'm not a huge fan of, including Trump, who also did that. Made like weird little puns out of people's names. In fact, often that don't even make sense. Like when he calls Ron DeSantis Ron DeSanctus, which isn't a word. He used to say desanctimonious, which that's a word, sanctimonious. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but at least it's a word. But then apparently that became too much trouble, and he just started saying Ron DeSanctus, which is just mispronouncing the name for some reason. It's a very strange thing, and that's someone I don't want to imitate at all.
Strategy.
Yeah.
Inflatable dirigible, and fly over the swamp with cameras and infrared instruments to try.
Okay, infrared instruments would be interesting, except that, Kent, don't you think that dinosaurs were cold-blooded? So how would that help? The temperature of Mokele Mbembe would just be the same as the temperature of the surrounding environment, because it's cold-blooded.
It defeats the whole infrared camera idea.
I know. Maybe Kent just, at this point, isn't sure if dinosaurs are warm or cold-blooded. I don't know, because, I mean, we know that some of them were at least mesothermic.
I assume he doesn't know how infrared cameras work, so he has no idea that cold-blooded animals wouldn't show up on it.
We should get him to watch Predator. That has a bit where we learn about how if you're the same temperature as the surrounding area because you smear mud all over yourself, you're hard to see in the infrared.
Yeah. I think maybe he might watch that if we talk to him about it.
Oh, we could call him and say, Kent, have you seen the greatest new documentary about dinosaurs in the jungle, Predator? It's amazing. It's even got Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jesse the Body Ventura.
Yeah.
Didn't he become like governor of Nevada or something crazy like that?
Minnesota.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Goodness. U.S. politics is cursed. And he started going by Jesse the Brain Ventura. Because
the Mind.
The Mind, okay. Goodness.
Jesse the Mind Ventura. It's pretty clever.
U.S. politics really is the most cursed politics. All right, here we go.
Just be a celebrity and run. You'll win.
Yeah, I mean, Ronald Reagan did it. Arnold Schwarzenegger did it. Jesse Ventura did it. Donald Trump did it. We're all gonna die soon.
Try to photograph this creature. He's got a couple of millionaires backing him up on this expedition. Chuck Holcomb's a good friend of mine. He's the one that built the huge cave. Which
Crypto457 says, I wouldn't a good chunk of the forest be half-eaten by the still-living sauropod? I don't know, because the stories that you get out of the Congo about Mokele Mbembe usually don't portray it as being, like, very big by by sauropod standards. It's more like slightly bigger than an elephant, which, I mean, depending on the population, could probably leave a pretty good portion of the forest relatively intact. I mean, it is a gigantic forest/swamp. Apparently it was Minnesota. Yeah, we call Arnold the Governator. Yeah, we did. I mean, you kind of have to.
Yeah.
To inflate, for kids to get in, and it says Dinosaur Cave, and he's got it on the side, travels around and uses it as a ministry. But he's going over there, supposed to be, I think, fall 2000 or spring 2001.
Okay, so this was definitely in the 90s. Ben, what year is it again? I can't remember.
I'm pretty sure it's 2023.
Okay, so it's been, what, like 23 or 22, 24, so 22 to 24 years or so since this was supposed to take place?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm old, right? I'm over 150 million years old, so my memory isn't great.
Right.
Has there been, in the last 20 plus years, a story about finding a sauropod in the Congo that I just forgot about?
No, because they covered it up.
It was a conspiracy.
It must have been.
We're going to take a drink for... they're going to go in a few years. Totally going to find a sauropod. Okay, 20 years later.
Believe it when I see it.
Mm-hmm. All right, here we go.
And he's going to actually go into the swamp and try to photograph this. He's concerned, and I mentioned this to him. I said, Chuck, I don't know if infrared will do any good if it's a reptile.
Oh my goodness, Kent got that right. Wow. I'm surprised.
He does know about infrared. Wow.
Okay. I'm impressed, Kent. I would not have pegged you as someone who would understand infrared cameras in the least.
Me neither.
They don't have any body heat. They're the same.
Well, I mean, it's not like they're frozen, but yeah.
Temperature as their environment. So infrared may not show up. This
done,
article
Ken.
appeared
Yeah.
in London, United Kingdom. There's a website there.
I like how he
email
just
if you want to
changes
get a hold
the
of.
subject right after demonstrating why it wouldn't work.
Yeah, he's like, don't worry about that. It'll be fine.
Hunters launch a trek for a living dinosaur.
Isn't that the Allosaurus from, like, the Valley of Guanji?
I have no idea.
Okay. Oh, my goodness. Metro, June 4th, 1999.
Right.
From London. Okay.
So
From,
blurry.
Yeah, it is very blurry.
You can get on cryptozoology.st.
The most reliable of sources.
If you want more on that. The natives over there claim that these animals live in caves. They're very rarely seen. They come out at night.
Wait, Tesla Ranger, you also remember the Valley of Guanji? Is that the Allosaurus from the Valley of Guanji? If it is, let me know, because I will be very stoked if I actually got that right, because I don't actually really know. All right, Strawberry Artery official bootleg edition. My goodness, God, that's amazing. For $5, says AIG is a crockpot of cranky copyright claiming cockadoodle cloacas. Nice. I'll take a drink for that. Goodness, that's pretty great. But also, guys, oh, you just did it by dropping one viewer. I can't say the Bilbo line.
Oh no.
Yeah, but if we don't get more likes before we get more viewers, the Bilbo's coming out.
Oh no.
Yeah, one person dropped out and I was just about to quote Bilbo, and I was like, oh, darn it, I can't now, because now it is actually right.
And they eat plants for a while, and then they move on somewhere else. They're migratory. So it's not a simple matter of, hey, let's go take a picture and go home. It's just not quite like that. William Gibbons was Mr. Scotland, one of the bodybuilders, you know, like me. And he is a good friend of mine from Canada. He's been over there 3 times to the Congo swamp, and he and I wrote this book together. You can get a hold of him. His website is, or his email is congo@ionsis.com.
I love how often Kent just randomly doxes people. He just does it all the time. Just, here's someone's personal phone number. Just publicly. Oh, okay, thanks. Thanks, Kent. Goodness.
He doesn't realize how dangerous that can be.
No, he doesn't. Or maybe he does. He probably didn't in the 90s.
No, I don't think he did in the 90s, but he should know better by now.
To be fair, it was less dangerous in the 90s because, you know, unless you got this VHS tape, you know, this wasn't like publicly available for anyone to just go online. Because, I mean, there wasn't a YouTube at the time, so you couldn't just go online and get this video. So to be fair to him, it was less dangerous at the time, but still, not great. Also, I kind of want that book. It looks ridiculous. It looks like one of those print-to-order books.
Jaws and Dinosaurs?
Yeah. It looks like one of those print-to-order books that you can, like, self-publish on Amazon, and there's no checking for, like, any kind of editing or anything. They're just like, hey, we're just going to put this up here, and whenever someone buys it, our print-to-order service will just print one, and then they get it, and then you get a tiny amount of money.
My sister-in-law did that. She's got 3 books on Amazon.
I mean, look, I'm not going to say that it's a bad thing, right? There have been some good print-to-order books made on Amazon. For instance, R.J. Downard and Jackson Wheat both made their The Rocks Were There, Volume 1. That's a print-to-order book on Amazon, and it is excellently researched and very detailed and a great source for counter-creationist claims.
And the bibliography is longer than Kent Hovind's dissertation.
Yes, it is, by a lot.
By several pages.
Yeah, Lulu.com is another option. Fear the Earth Came from the Exploding Sun manga. Inkboy for €2 says, most famous bodybuilder in the world is Frankenstein.
True.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that is true. Very famous bodybuilder.
ionsis.com and talk to William about his expeditions.
Oh, I missed a joke that didn't land? It must have been that hard that I didn't even know it was supposed to be a joke. All right, yeah, sure, we'll take a drink for that.
I think it was when Kent pretended to be a bodybuilder.
Oh, yeah, that went right over my head.
He's also been to several other places on cryptozoology adventures. For instance, there is some pretty good evidence that the dodo bird is not extinct.
It's a flightless giant pigeon, Kent. How good at hiding can it possibly be?
What's this evidence? I want to hear it. about his evidence.
Oh, first, I have to say, Dr. Josh, which actually, Vishanti, if you could post a link to the Amazon page, has just recently published an excellent book on slavery in the Old Testament. Now, here's something that Dr. Josh doesn't really know. I read the main body of that book in manuscript form, and it's excellent. He doesn't know about that, though, so feel free to tell him if you want. But yeah, it is actually very good. It goes through the slavery laws in a bunch of ancient Near East cultures, including the biblical slavery laws from the Torah. Compares them, tries to take a look at various, actually slavery was probably okay, at least in the past, apologetics claims that people who for some reason think that they should be defending that particular institution for religious reasons like to make. And addresses all of them in great detail. And then there's like 300, or I don't remember how many pages, I don't want to lie. There's a bunch of pages of appendices. It's like half the book of our appendices, including an exhaustive list of slavery laws from the ancient Near East. And I mean exhaustive. Every single one he could find published anywhere went in the book. So, yeah, it is excellent. And Vishanti, if you could post a link in there, that would be great. I think it's $9.99 for the paperback or the Kindle. And if you really can't afford it, I believe you can email Dr. Josh Bowen and get a copy gratis. He does do that occasionally for people who would really like to read one of his books and who just can't afford it for whatever reason. So, but also if you can afford it, do get it. It is a source of income and helps support he and his wife, who's also doing academic work as well as their new baby. Although, I think the baby's like 3 or 4, some toddler, whatever. Here we go.
The last known dodo bird was like 300 years ago. And they've got it stuffed and mounted someplace in a museum. But there's some islands out between Africa and India where they say there are probably some dodo birds still alive. So
it's Mauritius. You could say Mauritius, but okay.
He's doing research on that type of thing. I was about ready to go on TV one time in Canada on the 100 Huntley Street Club program, and
okay, there was just no point to that. There was just maybe dodos are alive. Moving on to this one time I was on Canadian TV.
There's a bunch of evidence, but he didn't mention any of it.
Yeah, no, just
shocking.
Yeah, some people said maybe the dodo's still around. Oh, okay, that seems unlikely, but I guess I can't disprove it.
I'm sitting there, and they're putting makeup on, all this stuff for TV, and I'm sitting there with a missionary who I had never met before. His name was Cal Bombay, and he does a regular story on this 100 Huntley Street every week, or every day, whatever they broadcast. And I was telling Cal about dinosaurs still living, and I had Roy Mackel's book there. And I handed it to him. He just was thumbing through it, and he stopped on this page right here, page 256, and said, "My wife and I saw one of those."
That is not a dinosaur. I am taking a drink. There is no dinosaur that looks like that. There never has been. I don't even know what I'm supposed to be looking at. It looks like a lizard that's just pushing itself up off the ground. Except there also are no lizards that look like that. That's just a made-up animal. Goodness. No, it's not a living dinosaur.
He said, "I was missionary in Kenya, Africa for 15 years. He said, we're driving down this dry, dusty road, very arid region, lots of small brush everywhere, and we saw this giant creature." He said, "I would guess it was about 15 or 18 feet long, like a monitor lizard."
Which is not a dinosaur. Monitor lizards are lizards. Dinosaurs are not. Even though, well, yeah, but this is just another demonstration that Kent doesn't actually know what a dinosaur is, right? That's the thing. So, even if Kent saw a living dinosaur, which he has, he wouldn't be able to recognize it as such because he doesn't know what dinosaurs are. And if he saw another kind of reptile that he couldn't easily identify, he might misidentify it as a dinosaur, again, because he doesn't know what a dinosaur is. So, we're taking a drink. As Vagary says, the creature looks like a monitor lizard. Yeah, my guess is that it's actually probably a large monitor lizard that was seen under somewhat bad conditions, and therefore the size seemed bigger, which is actually a pretty well-known phenomenon. Humans are actually not great at judging the size of objects, especially in the dark with little context. So, like, if you're in a foreign country in the wilderness, in the dark, and say some animal crosses the road in front of you, there's a fair chance that you're going to think that it's bigger than it actually is. So, yeah, my guess is that what happened is a monitor lizard walked across a road. So, yeah. Which actually reminds me of the time that I was in South Carolina and an alligator walked across the path as my nephew was trying to run forward on the path. And we had to physically restrain him from running into an alligator.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, he was about 4 feet away or so from, like,
oh my goodness,
a close encounter with a gigantic reptile. And we're like,
crazy.
no. Okay, it wasn't 4 feet. It was probably more like 10, but still. Yeah, it was. He was like, oh, just running. Because, he's a kid, he's got energy. He's going to run a little bit. And we're like, oh, no, hold up. That's an alligator. Yeah. Ooh, that was a little scary.
Yeah, I bet.
He said it was stopped in the middle of the road, like it was sunning itself, trying to warm up.
Oh, well, maybe it was daytime. Still sounds like a monitor lizard to me, which is not a dinosaur. And if you wanted to say there are living monitor lizards in Kenya, I'll just say, yeah, okay. That sounds about right.
Lizards have to lay in the sun to warm themselves up. He said it looked like that picture you have there, but the plates on the back were bigger.
Now, see, this part I am less inclined to believe, right? Because now we're trying to say, like, oh, look, it's got, like, Stegosaurus plates or something. Except that Stegosaurus is not the kind of thing that you could mistake for a monitor lizard, right? It had much bigger plates that weren't centerline, but maybe he's not going there, Shipfish, member for 16 months, says, the boy craves the reptile. Godzilla. Thank you. Thank you, Drink. Yeah, well, we had to put an end to that. And, oh, hey, Bent, I just realized, we are below 1,000 left on the fundraiser.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yep, we now have, 968 left to go until it reaches its goal.
And that is amazing.
Yes, thank you very much for all of your generosity. It means a lot.
He said, we shut the car off, and my wife and I watched it for 10 or 15 minutes. He said finally it got up and just walked off into the brush, disappeared. I videotaped an interview with Cal Bombay, and it's on the end of my video number 3. You can see the interview with me talking to Cal about the creature that he saw. He, describes it for himself. Down in South America, one of the largest jungle swamp areas in the world is down here, called the Amazon jungle. I flew over to Amazon when I came back from preaching in Brazil and was just amazed at the size of that thing. That jungle is huge. It goes forever, it seems like.
I mean, that is true. It is really, really big, so I guess we'll take a drink. Good job, Kent.
But in 1907, Colonel Fawcett from the British Army was down there. He was a member of the Royal Engineers. And he had a reputation of being a no-nonsense kind of guy, meticulous recorder of facts. They sent him down with a crew to mark the boundary between Brazil and Peru. Fawcett reported in the Beni swamps that he saw an animal he believed to be Diplodocus.
Okay. Hey, Bent, do you think that there's going to be any physical evidence of this creature?
Of course not.
Okay. Just wondering. Because that would be the thing, right? That we could use to say, hey, this is true. There really is a Diplodocus. Weird how that never...
No photos.
No, yeah, that never shows up. Yeah.
We'll see.
Which would be the Brontosaurus, okay?
Jesus, I'm taking a drink. Diplodocus and Brontosaurus are not the same animal. You can't just name 2 sauropods and then just say that they're the same thing. They have different names specifically because they're different animals.
Only a little smaller version. The Diplodocus story is confirmed by many of the tribes east of the Ucayali River. This is from the book, The Rivers Ran East.
Oh, many, huh? Any names of them? Any, say, like, ethnographies that we could check on that have actually been done by professional ethnographers who are trained to collect things like these kinds of folklore stories so that they can be entered into, like the scientific literature?
No, negative.
Yeah, probably not. Kerry Bronson for $5 says, okay, Kent, new meme template? I mean, I like it. I'd say make that meme. Go for it. Now there is one thing I want to check on, which is how is Sheepit doing? Because in case you guys don't know, I am actually currently in the process of rendering out the animations for a brand new Dapper Dinosaur video, which you guys, if you have early access, which means you're a member or a patron, could actually be seeing hopefully within the next few days, definitely by the end of the week. And it is using an all-new set and a new version of the Dapper Dinosaur avatar. So I think that's pretty exciting. Anyway, here we go.
Check it out for yourself back in 1953. Colonel Fawcett's son drew a picture of the footprints that they saw.
Okay, so not even Colonel Fawcett. Was Colonel Fawcett's son on the expedition? Right? Because that's... I think that would have been important information.
He drew a picture. What more evidence?
He saw one of these animals in the swamp, and...
I would have liked to have seen the picture, right? Because I happen to know what sauropod footprints look like, and therefore I could say, hey, does that look like a sauropod footprint? And I'm going to go ahead and guess that the answer is probably no. Yeah. Now, do I know that? No, but that's because I can't see the footprints, Kent. Where are the footprints? This is one of those, like, where are the eyes, Randy, kind of situations. And if you don't get that meme, watch some of the more recent Dapper Reacts videos. Because Randy Galuza is a crazy person.
Very much so.
They described it as having a long neck sticking its head up way into the trees.
Okay.
And a large body.
Okay, here's the thing, though. Diplodocus probably couldn't elevate its neck all that much. Now, this is a little bit contentious, right? It seems like everybody and his uncle has a different story about sauropod neck use and exactly why they had such extremely long necks. But at the very least, the non-macronarian sauropods. Macronaria is a particular group of sauropods. And Diplodocus is not a macronarian. Doesn't seem to have had the actual like bone and skeletal architecture that would have allowed it to easily reach its neck high up into the trees. So it probably was a browser that was going for like low browsing or even grazing on things like fern plains and stuff like that. So yeah, the idea that like Diplodocus is just sticking its neck way up, a little iffy. Now it could also just be that the person reporting this just doesn't really know what Diplodocus was, as opposed to Brachiosaurus or, you know, Saltosaurus or anything else like that. That's also a possibility. It could just be that that was like the one sauropod name they knew. In which case, okay, whatever. Not that I actually think that even if they did get the right name, that would lend credence. Because again, physical evidence or GTFO. But here we go.
Long tail. Typical dinosaur-like sighting, and there are thousands of these available that you can read for yourself. Bolivian
A Staryu for $19.99. Thank you very much for the generous super chat. Says, I spent $1.99 and sent a super chat to Kent with Bent because AIG went to put a dent in Dapper's allotment of AdSense, proving that they are a pent in a Sorry, there's a lot of alliteration. It's very funny to me. Proving that they are a pent in a present that as a result is filled with malcontent members. Thank you very much. I will take a drink for that. That's pretty great. Yeah, no, that's... You guys have the best wordplay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you guys, that's
very much so.
It's very good stuff. I really appreciate it.
Chat's a genius.
It really is, yeah. Here we go.
This is from 1883, Scientific American. Now understand, in the late 1800s, evolution was not as firmly entrenched as it is today in our system.
Yeah, that's because it had just been published, man. It was still very much in contention as to whether or not evolution through natural selection was right, or whether orthogenesis was right, or whether the mutationists were right, who were like basically like neo-Mendelians who didn't think that because of Darwin's continuous heritability ideas that evolution by natural selection could work, because they were right that heritability was in fact discrete. Like pointing out, hey, in the past, science was less right than it is today isn't really like a great argument, Kent. It's like, yeah, the reason that the consensus has converged on the current modern synthesis in the same way that the consensus has converged on other theories in other parts of science today that it had not converged on in the late 1800s is a sign of that science is working. Science is doing what it's supposed to do, right? I had the same thing with Bodhi Hodge in the script I'm writing, where he complains that oh, back in like the 1930s, the dates for how old the universe was ranged from like 20 billion all the way down to 8 billion. So what do they know? It's like, yeah, but then those numbers started to converge closer and closer to 13.77. And that one paper notwithstanding, they don't really seem to be going anywhere anytime soon. It's almost like science has been developing better measurement techniques, better mathematical tools, and just better technology overall that allows
Better
us
telescopes.
Yeah, better telescopes that allow us to get a better handle on these things. Weird. It's always baffling to me when creationists just complain about science doing science, especially when they say things like, "Oh, I love science," which Kent loves to say, right? He says that all the time. It's like, okay, well then why do you complain about science getting better at doing science? And also just doing science the way science needs to be done.
Kent has no idea what science is. He thinks it's just a collection of trivial knowledge.
It's true, yeah,
that
he
can
does.
Put on a quiz next week.
Mm-hmm. Which you can see from like his, this will be a good quiz question. It's always trivial nonsense.
Always.
Like, who was the guy who said this thing? Who cares, Kent? That doesn't tell you whether or not your
the
audience
second
understands anything.
fastest river in Texas? It's the Paluxy.
Oh, yeah. Which is like...
That was from like 6 months ago.
Like, who cares? It's such a meaningless thing to keep track of.
Right.
It's like, now I don't know exactly how true the story is, but the story goes that Einstein was once asked during an interview what the speed of sound was, and he said, I don't know. And the interviewer was like, wait, but you're Albert Einstein, you're supposed to be a genius. How do you not know the speed of sound? And he's like, I don't keep random numbers like that in my head. If I need to know the speed of sound, I'm just going to look it up. The important thing is to understand how the universe is operating, not to know every last decimal point of every last physical constant in the world. Right? It's the same thing with Kent, right? He thinks that science is a bunch of these random factoids and does not notice that it's actually supposed to be about things like understanding how the process works so that you can then go ahead and make predictions. And sure, you can look up the numbers that you need to get, actual numerical predictions. But yeah, also we already have bingos, huh? Wow.
That's awesome.
Congrats, Christine V, on a bingo this early. We're not even an hour in.
Any articles like this would never make it into Scientific American today, because anything that might harm the evolution theory is going to be carefully kept out by the review committee or whatever.
Why.
Yeah, no.
That's not why.
So there is no editorial standpoint that scientific journals have. However, if you submit a paper that is easily refuted by the peer reviewers, it's not going to be published. And it just so happens that no one has managed to actually make a good critique of evolution that would pass peer review. Now, I happen to think that's probably because evolutionary biology is just, true. And in order to attack it, you generally have to either misdefine it or lie about the evidence, or both, which is actually one of the most common tactics, is just misdefining it. For instance, when Sal Cordova published his little chapter in some absurdly expensive, but that's not his fault, mathematics journal collection, that was like, oh, look, we showed that there's a problem with genetics that might lead to genetic entropy, although they didn't use the term. Yeah, when you read that, their math is great, right? All the math looks spectacular, and all the mathematicians who peer-reviewed this were like, yep, nope, that math checks out. But they equivocated on the definition of fitness, so it doesn't mean anything. It's like, I'm glad that you can play lots of number games, but when you aren't defining things accurately, it doesn't mean anything for evolution. Savage, Triceratops latifrons Cobra. My goodness. I've seen that one before, but it still gets me. The speed of sound is 1 on the Mach scale. That's true, yeah. Einstein should have just said Mach 1. DM mitochondria-based natural medicine wing. Oh my goodness. You guys are digging deep for these. I love it. Says, it's been a while, so turtles are the best tetrapod. There you go. Royston... okay, let me know if I get this right. Rosina Keller for $9.99 US says, higher light theory was an alternative to the Big Bang that was extremely debunked once good enough telescopes showed distant galaxies weren't actually fuzzy, as tired light requires. Yeah, there was actually a big debate about whether or not maybe light just kind of increased its wavelength over time, and that is why there was this big redshift, and that maybe the universe wasn't expanding. Turns out, no. And also, I want to thank Rosina, or however it's pronounced. I'm sorry. Please let me know if I'm getting it wrong. because the science friends have been trying to get on Blue Sky for a while now. And up until today, I was the only one who was there, because I was the only one who had an invite, and I didn't have any. But Rosina was nice enough to donate 4 of their invite codes to the science friends, allowing 4 more of them to get on Blue Sky, which is going to greatly accelerate how fast we can migrate the entire group, because we want to all get away from Shitter. So, thank you very much. That is very much appreciated. On behalf of both me and the other 4 who got in. Which did not include TD Lane, because he's too slow. Yeah, I was like, what's a fair way to do it? Because I realized if I just send them in private DMs, I'm picking favorites among the science friends, and that feels weird to me. So I'm just like, I'm just going to dump them in the group chat, and whoever gets it first just gets it first. So, first come, first serve on the Blue Sky invites. Seems fair. It's like being a dad and being asked to choose who your favorite kid is. You don't want to say one of them. So, you just lie and say that you love all your kids equally.
Don't pick favorites.
No, it's really bad for your kids. And also, probably don't have favorites if you can avoid it,
But here's what the article says. The Brazilian minister at La Paz, Bolivia, had remitted to the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Rio photographs of drawings of an extraordinary saurian.
Okay, so these are photographs of drawings of a reptile. This is terrible. This is worse than the Deloy's ape. Do you know about the Deloy's ape?
No.
So it's this cryptid from South America that's supposed to be like some kind of ape, basically. And all it is just a picture of a monkey with its tail hidden and nothing for scale. And so they're like, oh, look, it's this gigantic ape. It's like 7 feet tall. And it's like, and it doesn't have a tail. And it's like, well, okay, but all we have is one photograph of this thing propped up with a stick. And there's nothing for scale. And we can't see the backside of it to know that it doesn't have a tail. And it just kind of looks like a monkey. That's better evidence of the Deloy ape than this picture of a drawing is of this dinosaur. And the Deloy's ape is one of the least well-supported cryptids I've ever heard of.
Wow.
No, that doesn't say... Does it say... Oh, yeah, it says it. Receiving 36 balls. Oh, no, they mean musket balls. That's what that is. That's projectiles. Yep. That's what that is. Yeah, I was confused there.
Dinosaur, killed on the Beni after receiving 36 balls. They shot it 36 times. By order of the president of Bolivia, the dried body, which had been preserved in Asuncion, was sent to La Paz. It is 12 meters long, 39 feet, from snout to point of the tail, which latter is flattened. Besides the anterior head, it has 4 meters behind 2 small but completely formed heads.
2 heads, huh?
Well,
Ped, would you like to guess how many known dinosaur species had 2 heads that we know of?
Well, this is 3 total heads.
Oh, okay,
So 3
3
head, and then 2 more.
Oh, 3. How many multi-headed dinosaurs do you think we know of?
This would be the first one.
Yes, it would. I'm just taking a drink for Kent taking seriously, like, yeah, maybe this 3-headed dinosaur that was totally preserved, but we don't have any extant preserved remains. That's probably real. Sure.
3-headed dinosaurs.
Yeah, 3-headed dinosaurs just all over the place.
Nobody knows what this means here. Rising from the back. All 3 have much resemblance to the head of a dog. The legs are short.
Okay, so it's just Cerberus. It's a scaly Cerberus. Jeez, I can't. I'm taking another drink with this. Can't just credulously yeah, totally scaly Cerberus lives in La Paz, Bolivia or whatever, and is totally just a sauropod. Because any of that makes sense.
Nothing.
Carrie Bronson
makes any sense.
No, not at all. Carrie Bronson for $5 says, hang on, is this ape like the iconic fishing picture where you hold it way forward to let foreshortening do the exaggeration for you? It's similar, right? So in that one, you're giving deceptive scale clues. But in this one, there just wasn't anything of a known size. It was just a picture of this thing sitting on a box of some dimension, propped up by a stick of some length. And it's just like, okay, right? That's why people do things like put coins in a picture next to a fossil or a rock or something in a photograph. Or you put scale bars in, right? It's to give you a sense of scale. This had none. Now we got a few more super chats. Dougie D for $1.99 says AIG is a duffel designed to displace dongs. Nice. We'll take a drink for that. Inkboy for €5 says, "What was that? A photograph of a drawing of a tale of a legend of a vision of a hallucination of a sack of micro sausages of AIG?" Sure sounds like it. Great one too. I didn't even see the AIG part coming until right around the 2/3 point. It's always fun when, like, I think the super chat is going one way, and then suddenly AIG is a bag of dicks just gets put in there right at the end.
And end in formidable claws. Who knows what they mean by the extra heads, unless it means fins on the back or spines or bumps.
Extra heads.
Yeah,
it's saying there is a 3-headed dinosaur.
Yeah, yeah. I love that Kent's like, well, it can't be it can't actually be heads because that's way too implausible. But that's what it says, Kent. If your story is too implausible even for you, just get rid of it.
Or deformity, we don't know. The legs, the belly, and lower part of the throat appear definitely defended by a kind of scale armor. And all the back is protected by still thicker and double, whatever that word is, cuirass, starting from behind.
It's cuirass, or cuirass, depending on, which way you want to say it. And it's a part of a suit of armor. But, yeah, okay. Now, also, Too Young to Feel As Old has gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. They went to Yuma, Lady V, Tavora, Shazami Whammy, SG Cruitt, and Herder Ams. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to take 5 drinks. Then we're going to take our quick break. I'm going to make a new drink. And then we're going to come back. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Thank you very much, everyone. Yeah, cuirass. So here's the thing, right? Like, it's from French, so it probably should have the accent on the last syllable, but then again, it's been in English for long enough that, like, whatever. So yeah, you can call it queer-ass. I don't care. And Goop23, who's been a member for 12 months at the tetrapod level, says, AIG is a bag of 3 heads or 36 balls. Take your pick. Nice, I'll take a drink of that. And that does it for that drink. I actually now have to go make a new drink. So guys, we will be back in just a little bit. In the meantime, please enjoy the musical stylings of one Kent Hovind. And we will be back with a few extra messages and then back into the Kent part. And we are back. Welcome back, Bent. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing all right. It's a little hot, so the AC is back on, which might mean the audio quality is a little bit down. Sorry about that, but it is Tucson, and it is August, so
Yes, it is.
you know. So before we get right back into it, a couple messages. First, we do actually have another super chat, at least one more super chat that went through. Let me see what we've got here. Oh, we have two that came through. So Savage Triceratops Lattifrons Cobra for $5 says AIG is a baneful bulge bearing bulky blunts that aim to befoul biology with their barmy beliefs. They're also beach made. Amazing. I'll take a drink for that. Okay. Let's see. Carrie Bronson for $5 says in American English, those three letters are always pronounced ass, regardless of context. Good to know. All right, so as I'm sure most of you know, this channel is almost entirely kept afloat by the generosity of the fans and viewers of the channel, whether it be through super chats, gifted memberships, individuals getting their own memberships, or Patreon. And without those things, the channel just wouldn't exist. At least it wouldn't be able to put out pretty consistently 3 videos a week for months on end. So if you want to help support the channel and you're currently not sure how to do that, check the description. The Patreon is a great way to do it. It starts at $1 a month. It can go all the way to $100 a month, depending on how generous you're feeling. You can get a 12% discount if you go annually. The memberships start at $1.99. I think they go to $20. Either way, you get early access to all my videos as they come out. I think we're approaching 5 months worth of early access stuff. I'm hoping to get to eventually even having like 6 months of early access stuff just right there available. There's multiple entire multi-hour series that you have not seen unless you're a member or a patron. They're just on the channel for early access that will come out once a week. But they're just there now if you want to watch them.
Hours and hours and hours and hours of content.
And that's just as a thank you to all the people who help out. That's why it's so far ahead. I want to make that a good value if you get that. However, I understand that monthly or an annual pledge might not be something that you want to do or can do. If that's the case, but you still want to help out, there's also an Amazon wish list for both me and Ben in the description. There is a merch store for me. Also, Ben Hovind's fundraiser is still going. We are now past the 1/4 mark, which is amazing. If none of that's right, like if you just can't afford it or you just don't want to give money, that's maybe not your thing, which is fine. Please just like the video, share it with people you think will like it, comment, and maybe sometimes watch a few of my videos in a row, just to help YouTube know that this is something that people enjoy and that they should promote it to new viewers. With that being said, I think wait, Alex Marco says we literally never hear your AC, Dapper Dinosaur. Strawberry Vein is correct. Read Dinosaur noise, or literally never hear your air conditioner, Dapper. Please don't worry about it. Well, in that case, this thing is going on a lot more often. Because I am super paranoid about that. But thank you. Well, now that I know that, AC is staying on.
Yes.
All right. Because here's the thing, I don't listen back to these, right? Because it's hard enough to go through it once, and live it, as the person who has to actually come up with all the responses. Watching it back over is hard for me to do. I watch very few of my videos over more than I have to, because by the time I'm finished editing it and checking it after the initial edit, I am so done with that content. It's like, nope, it's good. Get it out the door. I don't want to see it again. And then it premieres, and I have to watch it that one last time. And then I'm like, okay, never again. All right. Anyway,
and then there's the movie, and then you got to watch it again.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there is that because I do the supercuts. All right. Yeah, Vagri says literally, I've never heard your AC dab. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Here we go.
The ears of the anterior head and continuing to the tail. The neck is long and the belly large and almost dragging on the ground.
So that sounds like not a dinosaur, even if we ignore the fact that there just aren't 3-headed dinosaurs. Dinosaur bellies characteristically do not drag on the ground, and that is because that they have hips that, like mammal hips, actually face out to the side rather than, and then their femoral head is actually at an angle to the femoral shaft, right? So the femoral shaft is the main body of the femur, right? And the head is where it actually interfaces with the hip socket. Now, in animals like lizards, that is basically just one long straight shaft that ends in the head that's just in line. But in both mammals and dinosaurs, although in slightly different ways, the femoral head is actually offset. So by having the hip socket open out to the side, but then having the femoral head offset, you can get an upright stance. Now, this is not the only way that archosaurs have stood upright. There's also a situation called pillar erect, which happened in some pseudosuchians, where the femoral shaft and head were actually in line, but weirdly, the hip socket, the acetabulum, actually faced down, which is bizarre. Nothing like that happens today. But it did used to happen in the past, back in the Triassic. And so, if you have an animal that has its legs sprawling out and its belly dragging, that is not a dinosaur. Now, conveniently, Bent, what do you think about birds? Do you think they have the dinosaur femur?
I would think they do.
They do, which is weird, since apparently birds aren't dinosaurs, according to Kent. It's weird that they would have dinosaur femora then, huh?
It's so bizarre.
I know.
Must be some fluke.
Yeah. And yeah, also they're not mentioning a long neck. Yeah, this is clearly a Hydra Cerberus monster.
Professor Gilvetti, who examined the beast, thinks it is not a monster, but a member of a rare or almost lost species.
What's the difference? Like, that's one of the things. Like, what is a monster?
Yeah, I don't know how to define a monster.
I mean, I would say that, like, crocodiles should count as monsters by most definitions. They're gigantic, horrifying beasts that will eat you. Hippos, too. But then again, some definitions of monster require that it be fictional, which, I mean, okay, then nothing in real life is a monster. So, yeah.
As the Indians in some parts of Bolivia use small earthen vases of identical shape and probably copied from nature. William Corliss has written in many, many books where he gathers information from old encyclopedias and old...
Also, remember how Kent prefaced this with saying, like, oh, back in 1888, evolution wasn't entrenched, and then he just read something that didn't really have anything to do with evolution?
Mm-hmm.
That's weird to me. Because the thing is...
very weird.
So Kent thinks that finding living non-avian dinosaurs would be a problem for evolution, even though it just wouldn't. Nothing about evolution says that the dinosaurs have to be extinct. We draw that conclusion not from evolutionary biology, but from the fossil record, where there's just no evidence of non-avian dinosaurs after the KPG. But if we were to find such evidence, even if in the sense of a living population, it'd just be like, oh, well, that's really cool. And then evolutionary biology would be like, neat, a new genome to sequence. That'll give us more information about the evolution of dinosaurs as a whole. And that would be it. That would be the extent of that. It would not be a problem for evolution. Savage Triceratops latifrons Cobra says, Kent sees a monster every time he shaves. Yeah, that's accurate. All right, here we go.
Old magazines about sightings of strange things like this. And he's done great work. You might want to get a hold of William Corliss's book, or any of his series of books. It's listed in my seminar notebook in the blue pages under Source Book Project. Here's a picture of a 35-foot snake that just swallowed a native.
Well, not a dinosaur, but yeah, that sure does look like a really big snake. Although I'll also point out that we might be getting some forced perspective here, because while that looks kind of like the bed of a truck, it also doesn't really look like the bed of a truck. And I don't know how big that enclosure is. So, like, And I guess you could say, well, it's probably not that much closer to the camera than those people are. Fair. But yeah, big snakes are a thing.
Yeah, they are. I don't know what that has to do with dinosaurs.
Yeah.
They killed the snake and put it in the truck. You know, snakes have a jaw that they can open up. The jaw comes apart, so they can swallow something bigger than their body.
He got it right.
He said it weird, but he did.
Yeah, because a lot of people incorrectly say that the jaw unhinges, but it doesn't. What actually happens is that the two sides of the lower jaw are actually not fused together, and so they can open laterally and also move independently. And Kent got that right. We'll take a drink. That's actually impressive. I know people a lot smarter and write about a lot more things who get that wrong very frequently. I'm impressed. Like, legitimately. That's actually something that I'm impressed if normal people know, not just idiots like Kent.
Can you do the infrared thing too?
Yeah. Kent's kind of on fire, relatively speaking, today.
He's gotten 2 things right.
Yeah, two things that aren't just very obvious, too.
2 things.
Too Young to Feel This Old for $10 says, the wife has headed out for the week to do her ANG duty. So, that's Air National Guard, got it. Duty time. So the little ones were going to stay up past their bedtimes to watch the dapperest dino, but they were getting sleepy, so they say goodnight. Well, good night, kids. I hope you have a wonderful sleep. I hope your mom has a great time doing her National Guard stuff. And I guess the school isn't in session, so don't have a great time at school because you're still out on summer vacation. So have a great summer vacation. Yeah. Go play with squirt guns or something. That's a fun time. But, like, not tonight. Tomorrow, maybe.
Snakes are found with pigs inside and deer inside where they swallow the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
And a large snake like that might only have to eat once a year. Guinness Book of World Records has 32 feet as the longest snake proven. Well, Colonel Fawcett said he shot and killed a 62-foot anaconda snake.
And then there was no body presented to anyone. So here's the thing. I've actually looked into this Colonel Fawcett thing, right? And despite what Kent says about his reliableness, he actually has a reputation for being particularly unreliable and just making stuff up to do this thing called selling books. Because he made a lot of money from his travel logs. And here's the thing about 19th century travel logs. There's really not much of a way for most people to fact check them, right? If you're just some guy hanging out in, like, the United States or England or something in the 1880s, what are you going to do? You can't Google it. So if someone says, I shot a 60-foot snake, you can be like, well, I don't believe you, but what, are you going to fly to Bolivia yourself? Probably not. You can't fly. You're going to sail to Bolivia? No, you probably got your own responsibilities. So no one could really fact check him. And in fact, he made money selling accounts of his travels and the crazy monsters he killed. So, yeah, including, I think it was like, he also said that he found a dog that, like, didn't have a nose or something crazy like that. And he killed one of those in South America, and he killed a brontosaurus in South America, and a gigantic 60-foot snake, and a 3-headed lizard monster, like a bunch of these things, right? I actually ended up looking this up when I was responding to Cindy Lincoln's tour of the Creation Science Evangelism Science Center, so-called, because she brought up this particular set of stories. So I looked into this guy. Yeah, like, known fabricator, not actually a trustworthy witness. So, yeah. All right, here we go.
In the jungle down there. The natives that were with him said, Colonel, you should see the big ones.
Yeah, according to him, who was selling travel logs.
The natives were terrified when he shot this thing because they said, oh, no, don't shoot it, because if there's one, there's going to be 2.
Yes, because snakes famously mate for life.
There's another one around here somewhere.
By the way, that's not true. Snakes actually do not mate for life. Instead, they just have really weird big ball orgies where they just kind of all coil up and hope to get lucky. Yeah, it's weird. I mean, that's many snakes. I guess probably not all snakes. But yeah, they don't mate for life.
Well, he shot it and killed it and measured it. Now, the guy's a member of the Royal Engineers. He ought to know how to run a tape measure. He said it was 62 feet and some inches long. I mean, he measured it.
Ken, I don't think anyone is skeptical of this story because they don't think that he had the capacity to successfully measure 60 whatever feet. Right? We're skeptical of the story because there's literally no physical evidence, and it's coming from someone who does not seem to be a reliable narrator. And yeah, as Christine V says, IRL Gilderoy Lockhart. Yeah, if you remember Gilderoy Lockhart from the Harry Potter books, he was a guy who got famous for all of his crazy adventures and, you know, his interactions with all sorts of magical beasts and whatnot. And then it turns out that under scrutiny, yeah, it all just fell apart. It was all bullshit. Yeah, he was just real-life Gilderoy Lockhart.
Officials of the Brazil-Colombia Boundary Commission in 1933 killed a 98-foot snake 2 feet in diameter with a machine gun on the banks of the Rio Negro.
If I remember correctly, the Rio Negro is also called the Black Amazon, and it's one of the 2 rivers that form upstream to go into just the Amazon. And if I remember correctly, it is near the capital of Amazonas, which is, Ben, do you know the name of the city? We go there all the time in the Power Rangers game. What is it?
Mm-mm. I don't know.
I can't. I don't remember it. But there's a city where you can actually go, and it's like that's where the two Amazons meet and mix into the Amazon. Eggboy for €5 says, just so you would know, I had to get up at 4 a.m. to watch your stream. But what I wouldn't do for our best guy Bent, but still, it's an AIG situation. Nice. Well, thank you very much for getting up so early. That is very flattering. And also, we have a increase in the number, so let me refresh that, and we will take a drink. Thank you very much. Okay. Also, I like that we have On the Track of Unknown Animals, which is, I'm sure that is peer reviewed, right? That's got to be.
If it's an unknown animal, then how is it a dinosaur?
Good point. Well, I mean, it's definitely not, right? Because it's a snake. Manaus, yes, it is Manaus. Thank you, the Gaby. That is it. That is where the two main tributaries joined up to form the Amazon.
They claimed the creature weighed 2 tons and 4 men had been unable to lift its head. Bernard Heuvelmans, president of the Cryptozoology Society, has one of the biggest and best books on this topic, even though he believes in evolution.
I love how Kent has to put that caveat in there. Because the thing is, like, that there exists an animal that no one really knows about isn't really a discriminating thing between evolution and creationism, right? Like, which animals are and aren't known doesn't really affect the question of evolution or creation, which really just puts the nonsense to this whole entire talk, where it's just like, it doesn't matter if any of this is true in terms of the evolution creation question. It's just fun to watch Kent talk about cryptozoology and be completely credulous over basically no evidence at all. But yeah, in the end, it doesn't matter. Heather Kuhn for $5 says, at least the stories Lockhart told actually happened. He just wasn't the one who did the deeds. True. That is a good point. Lockhart was actually better than this guy, because those were actual real things. Yeah, he does have that on him.
He does all this research and says, wow, dinosaurs are still alive, and it's amazing they survived for 70 million years. So he still comes to the wrong conclusion. But his book is tremendous, and I'd recommend it, in spite of his evolutionary prejudice. A cook from a hotel in Amazon jungle said he saw a 100-foot snake. Now, I met
a cook. Not even a name for the guy who said it. So what we're getting here... Oh, and look at this. This is the citation Kent says. It's a story told to him by a missionary to Ecuador. Okay,
you put the data in there, then.
So a missionary told Kent that a cook had told him that he had seen a big snake. I'm taking a drink. I just can't with this. His source says, literally, a guy told me.
But he put the guy's name, address, and phone number there.
Ugh.
Does that count?
No, because it's still just some guy.
Does that make it evidence?
No.
Are these snakes dinosaurs, or they're just snakes?
Yeah, that's another weird thing. Is like, why are we talking about snakes if we're trying to say that dinosaurs are alive? Even under Kent's logic, where apparently evolution says that dinosaurs had to go extinct, it clearly doesn't say that about snakes, right? Because evolutionary biologists are generally aware that snakes exist. In fact, actually, let me double check, right? Okay. I'm gonna DM some some evolutionary biologists, right? So we're gonna say we're gonna ask Dr. Dan, and we're gonna ask who else we're gonna ask? Zach Hancock. Zach BioNerd Hancock. Zach BioNerd? Is that gonna come up? Yeah, there it is. Zach B BioNerd. Okay, this is on Twitter. I'm sorry, Shitter. Alright, here's what I'm typing. As evolutionary biologists, do you think that snakes are extant? We'll see what they say.
Okay.
Yeah. If they say yes, then we'll know that Kent has no idea, even under his own terms, what he's talking about. All right, here we go.
Missionary to Ecuador, back in January of year 2000. And he told me the story, right here, that this cook had told him that he saw a 100-foot snake, which the military had hunted down after it had eaten 2 soldiers. The snake's head was 5 feet long. And this guy was a missionary to that region, and the cook went to his church there and told him the story. Said, that's what happened to me. This was in Reuters News Service, 1997. 130-foot boa seen in Peru.
Okay, the initial response from both was, I feel like this is a trick question. They were both like, this is a trick question.
Surprisingly, no, it is not a trick question.
So yeah, I'm letting them know this is not a trick question. This is for the show.
That's a big snake.
It would be a big snake if we had any evidence that it existed. Okay, so Dan Cardinal says, I'm gonna say hesitantly, yes. Okay, well, let's see what Zach says.
Hesitantly?
Yeah, we'll see what Zach says. Why is this? You know what? If you put at and then you start typing, it should default to bringing up first the people who are in your group chat. Should get your act together. I say that like it's going to get any better.
I think that's...
No,
yeah,
it's
not going to get any better.
Terrified the villagers, of course.
Okay, Zach B. Bionerd says, my lab mate is a snake phylogeneticist, so I'm going to go with yes, very extant. Okay. All right, so guys, despite what Kent might have you believe, it turns out that evolutionary biologists are generally aware that snakes are extant, and they do not generally consider them to be extinct. So, there you go. And that's coming from 2 guys who don't even specialize in snakes. Zach is a crustacean guy. Yeah, Zach is a crustacean guy, and Dan is a virology guy. So, yep.
Crashed through the jungle. When it was all done, it left a trail that a wagon could go through as it pushed the trees and brush out of the way. 1948, this picture was taken in South America of a snake floating down the Amazon River.
I believe that is a snake. However, what? Okay, I'm going to read this super chat from Olivia Williams. And Bent, I want you to think about the word perspective and scale. Okay. We'll see if you can figure out why I'm suspicious that this is a gigantic snake. Olivia Williams for $2.79 Beaver Bucks says, don't forget to press like, everyone. Ghidorah, and we will take a drink for that. And then Scott Duke for $1.99 says, did the Amazon run in the... Maybe I'm missing something. Hold on. Run in the AFR continue join with SA? I have no idea what that means, Scott Duke. I'm sorry. My brain might just be fried. Did the Amazon run in the African continent join with South America? Is that?
Oh, maybe that's what that is.
I feel like that's one of those things where it's like you.
I meant to say when joined.
Did the Amazon run? Oh, when Africa was joined with South America. No, that is a post-split river. And Sarah Triceratops Ladder Prawns Cobra for $2 says, AIG is a snake mating ball in a bag. I'll take a drink for that. Also, Fear Earth Came from the Sun Exploding Monger says, Kent cited Reuters for that last article. Looked up that article title in the Reuters archives, came up with no results. Could it be possible that Kent lied? Yeah, could be. Could be. All right, so, Bent, do you know why I'm suspicious that this picture does not show a long snake, even though I'm willing to say it does show a snake?
Yeah, because of perspective and scale.
And what about those?
Scale and perspective.
Oh, come on, you know. Oh, I think our number just went up, so we're going to take a drink for the number going up. All right. Bent, if I had asked you how long is that snake, how would you tell?
I would put a banana for scale and then
but you have
the bananas and then divide.
You only have the picture, so how big would you make the bananas in the picture?
Life size.
Well, then that snake would end up being pretty small in most cases, unless you had a very, very big printout. So here's the thing. There's nothing that's close enough to that snake that you can reasonably determine its scale. You can say, well, there's a cabin. Yeah, okay, it's off in the distance.
It's way far back.
There's literally no way to tell how big this snake is. That could be a 4-foot long snake for all we know. We just don't know. There's no way to get a good sense of scale off of this picture.
Plus, it has nothing to do with dinosaurs.
Inkboy says ripples in the water. Okay, but those ripples don't help a lot because ripples can vary significantly in size. Now, if they were tiny, tiny, tiny ripples compared to the snake, then yeah, we could probably infer it's pretty big. But there's no, like, good way to figure out exactly how big those ripples are either. You can't even know that they're consistent in size closer to the house because we can see some ripples off in the distance, but ripples can vary in size from one place to another in a body of water, and they also don't go all the way to the house visibly. So even if we do assume that they're all the same size, we still can't use that as a good scale. That is just a picture of what's probably a snake, but it could be anything from small to gigantic. There's just no way to tell.
The witnesses claim it was 150 feet long.
I will say I would not look at that picture and think that 150 is a reasonable estimate, but part of that is just my bias in how big snakes are.
Yeah, my perspective that my brain is showing me is there's no way that thing's longer than 10 or 20 feet.
Yeah.
Nobody poked it to see if it was alive. They just let it float on by. Good thinking. Now, Jim Foster was a student of mine for many years, and then he became a missionary.
I think the good thinking was supposed to be a joke. We'll take a joke for a drink that didn't, or a joke that. We'll take a drink for a joke that didn't land. There we go. My brain did in English. Addicted to Mosh says, Dapper Dino, this is clearly a Titanoboa. Evolution debunked. Yes, of course. Extant Titanoboa would disprove evolution just like an extant sauropod would, which is to say, in no way whatsoever.
He was in Amazon for a while. He told me that down where he was, in the central part of the country, the Amazon River was only 9 miles wide. Can you imagine a river 9 miles wide?
Yes.
When it gets out near the Atlantic Ocean, it becomes 200 miles wide. That's a big river.
Yes, it's the biggest river by volume in the world. Okay. I don't know what else to say to that. It's like, yeah, Amazon's big, Kent. We know. Is this big numbers, therefore God? Does that count for bingo purposes?
It does count.
Okay, there you go. If you guys are playing bingos and your card has big number, therefore God, you can put it in there. Fear of the Earth came from the exploding sunmonger, says Dapper, was your brain stuck on the original Klingon? Pishlach.
All sorts of things are in that river, of course, the piranha and all this kind of stuff. But in Scotland, of course, many folks have heard of the famous Loch Ness Monster.
So we're just going from the Amazon is big to the Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Therefore, creationism.
Which also, by the way, even if the Loch Ness Monster were real, it still wouldn't be a dinosaur.
We'll talk a little bit about Loch Ness and some of the other creatures that have been seen recently, right after we get back from the break. Strange and unexplained phenomena. See, to the average person, sighting a dinosaur is strange and unexplained phenomena.
I mean, not if it's a bird, right? But you could also make the argument that sighting any animal that isn't, like, known to science would be strange and unexpected. And I guess you could call it a phenomenon since, you know, it's a thing that happened. So, I mean, I don't know what that's supposed to mean.
To the Christian, it's not a problem. You know, so there's some still around.
It's not a problem for anyone, Kent, except that it's probably not true. Like, I love that he's citing all these quote-unquote evolutionist cryptozoologists, right? And saying, look, they think this is real. Therefore, what, Kent? If they accept evolution and don't think this is a problem, and you think that's not a problem for you, then what makes this an argument?
Why even talk about it?
Right. You know, Kent, for a fact, because you cite them, that the evolutionists don't find this to be a problem for evolution. Why do you? It's like, well, the evolutionists say that the dinosaurs went extinct 65 million years ago. Apparently not all of them, Kent. I have never, even when I was a young Earth creationist, I never understood this argument. Because even as a kid, I knew enough about evolution from just, like going to school and watching like PBS or whatever to say, well, so they just survived.
Right.
Everything else that is alive today just survived, right? Like,
Yes.
hey, birds didn't go extinct in the Cretaceous. Some of them survived. Same thing with snakes. Same thing with crocodiles. Same thing with frogs. Same thing with mammals. They're all living animals today are descended from animals that managed to survive the KPG extinction that wiped out the other dinosaurs. If that also happened to one other small group of animals, that's just a thing that happened. Evolution doesn't say, well, these specific taxa had to go extinct for evolution to be true. That's just not a thing. If anyone understands a better version of this argument that actually in some way makes sense, please let me know. Because I would love to understand why anyone thinks that this is a good argument for creationism.
The unexplained, and I have a whole section on Loch Ness Monster, or, of course, he's got a section on Bigfoot, and a section on dinosaurs.
Kent, I want you to believe in Bigfoot. Please tell me you believe in Bigfoot. Please do it, man. Please, I want you to believe in Bigfoot. Because here's the thing, right? I use, as a heuristic, I use a Bigfoot metric. And that's to say, if the percentage of a particular population that believes a claim is lower than the percentage of the US population that believes in Bigfoot, I consider that claim to be something that the general populace just finds implausible on its face. Right? So, for instance, I noticed that the number of, or the rate was the percentage of U.S. likely voters who found that Hillary Clinton was a trustworthy candidate in 2016 was lower than the number of people who believed in Bigfoot, which is how I knew she was a really bad candidate.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. Now, granted, I don't know if that was all the polls. I think I did see that in one or two polls, and I don't remember because it was a while ago. But yeah, like, that's how I figure that out. Right? It's like, does this pass the Bigfoot check? And I would love for Kent to be part of the population that I consider to be absurdly credulous.
Still living, and a section on UFOs, and all sorts of neat research, and I read all this stuff.
You think Kent thinks that UFOs are demons? I'm not kidding. That's a thing that people believe. John Morris Pendleton, the same guy who did the pterosaur hunt, he believed that UFOs were secretly demons.
Of course.
Yeah.
And yet, we come to the wrong conclusion. Here's one, Alien Animals, really a good one. Again,
hey, the number went up again. We'll take a drink.
In Witch-Bound Africa. Now, this is an older book, I think 30s. Let's see.
I'm sorry, Kent. The title of the book is In Witch-Bound Africa, like WITCH. Is this a book about witchcraft in Africa?
It might be.
Famously, a subject that is right there in with biology.
Witchcraft.
Goodness.
In Africa.
And yeah, Skeletor over 9000 says he might have gotten that idea from Kent about the UFOs being demons. Yeah, that's why I want to know, because John Morris Pendleton got a lot of his crap from Kent Hovind.
1967, about explorers who'd gone in there reporting these dinosaurs still alive. Dr. Bernard Heuvelmans, I mentioned, the president of the Cryptozoology Society. Here's his book. I read it very carefully, the entire thing. And it's really amazing.
I don't believe that Kent read that entire thing very carefully, because I'm pretty sure he's functionally illiterate.
He looked at the pictures.
Yeah. Like, his book, his books that he wrote in prison?
Mm-hmm.
Most accounts that I've heard from people who, been part of Kent's cult said that he didn't actually write those. He talked about them with people who wrote them as, like, ghost writers of his.
Mm-hmm.
And that while his name is on there, and they are basically his ideas, he couldn't actually put pen to paper and produce a book. Because he's incapable of doing that. Which, as we've seen from his so-called dissertation, is entirely in line with his known writings that are actually him. Snorfoot says UAP, please. Nah, I don't like UAP. Sticking with UFO. Because I'm an old dinosaur who is stuck in his ways, and I don't have to change my language about UFOs just because the government likes the phrase UAP. I'm not a big fan of the government as it is overall, because they do a lot of ridiculous nonsense.
I think the demons prefer UFO anyway.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, if the demons want to identify with the term UFO, it would be rude not to let them do that.
All of the stuff he's got in here, and yet again, wrong conclusion.
But Kent, you have to realize that that just means that this argument is not a good one for you. Because even if you're right, it doesn't matter, because it's easily fit under the framework that you are trying to discredit. Right? Like, I just don't get it.
And he's a brilliant scientist and a good guy, but just needs to put it into Christian perspective and it'll all make sense. Okay.
How do you know he's not a Christian, Kent? Most Christians accept evolution. You can't, on the basis of someone accepting evolution, conclude whether or not they are a Christian. I mean, Bent, are there any Christians here today who might accept evolution?
I'm one of them.
What?
I know.
Weird.
Shocking.
Yeah, Jillian Wren points out that UAP makes a lot more sense for in a lot of cases. And then also that they still say UFO. Yeah, no, I agree that UAP is probably the better term in terms of like what those words mean. But what are you gonna do?
Loch Ness. I don't know how many books have been written about Loch Ness. Here's the enigma of Loch Ness. And again, many, many stories. I read, I don't know about all of them, but I've read an awful lot of them.
Ken, you've either skimmed or had them read to you.
Probably 100 books just about Loch Ness. Because some tell the same stories. You know, the same stories appear in many books, and other times you glean new things from other authors. There's a website, lochness.co.uk, if you want to get on their website, or cryptozoology.com.
I love the two very, very different websites we've got here. Okay, sure, whatever.
Good websites about this. In northern Scotland, Loch Ness is a long lake. It's 24 miles long, about a mile to a mile and a half wide. Loch Ness is extremely deep. It's about nearly 1,000 feet deep in places. Now, before 1933, there was not really good access to the lake. If you wanted to see Loch Ness, you had to climb over the mountains. There are mountains on both sides of the lake.
Yeah, because it's a glacial ravine, which means it formed during the most recent ice age, which also means that it formed long after Loch Ness, or any of this area, had access to the sea. Which means that if it had been some kind of giant Mesozoic sea reptile, how would it have gotten into the lake? There is no way. It couldn't have. Yeah, magic.
It could fly, too.
Obviously. Strawberry Artery Official Bootleg Edition for $10 says, sending this to help pay for your completely inaudible AC. I finally was able to splurge on a tiny window unit for my workshop, and I can actually be in there outside of the hours of 2 to 5 a.m. now. Oh man, I know how that is. So when I record my audio, because it does pick up on my mic for like the audio recording, and it likes to shut off and on, so it's a pain to try to like edit that sound out. Basically what I do is I record audio late at night. So like this past night, I was up starting around midnight recording audio until about 1 a.m. Then I took a nap, and got up at 6 a.m. and started editing the audio, and then went straight into animation, and then I finished that sometime around like 2:30, and then I went and laid down for a little while, and then just got right back up for this. I would love it if I had a better solution for recording audio at a better time of day, but you know what? It's not worth the hassle, so I just do it at night.
Yeah.
It's in a very deep valley called the Glen, the Great Glen, or something like that. Loch Ness, actually, if you look at it, is part of a channel. I'll back up a couple slides here. You can swim all the way across Scotland through these different lakes that are connected, lakes and rivers.
Yeah, because they're all part of one big glacial system. But they are only connected to the sea by relatively narrow channels, and they only formed in the very recent past, according to both the evolutionary timeline and the young Earth creationist timeline, which has the Ice Age being much more recent, or well, the last Ice Age being much more recent, but still, well after the flood, and we still don't have a channel to the sea that would allow giant marine reptiles in. Because again, if Kent's going with the Plesiosaur thing, which I'm pretty sure is what he does, not a dinosaur, but also no way to get access to this lake.
Loch Ness is connected to the ocean.
Yeah, lakes generally are, but not by a big passage.
Via a river. Look at the north end there. You can see the little river goes up to the small town of Inverness. It's 7 miles from this little town, which has about 20,000 people. 7 miles up to Loch Ness.
Yeah, but it's not a river that's big enough to accommodate a giant plesiosaur of the kind that people say they see in the loch. And I'm not going to say loch or anything, because I'm not Scottish enough, so sorry.
Okay.
If you've ever taken a boat ride for 7 miles, you know how monotonous that can be, because boats typically don't go real fast.
What was the longest, in terms of water voyage that you ever took, Bent?
Thousands of miles.
Yeah.
7 kilometers.
Was that,
and months long.
Was it tedious, though?
Yes.
All right, well, then Ken got something right. We'll take a drink. That is tedious.
It's very tedious. It's the definition of tedious.
Oh, seriously. I was just today thinking how tedious the animation was, and I was like, okay, but I'm not an aircraft carrier on deployment,
right.
So,
So this is Shout's play.
Yeah.
But about the only access to this lake was go up the river 7 miles. And that's just to get to the end of the lake.
You don't see this as a problem, Kent. How does he not see this as a problem?
I have no idea what's going on in his head most of the time.
Savage Triceratops Ladderfronts Cobra for $2 says, you are more Scottish than Kent is a doctor. That's true. Actually, my 23andMe, or no, Ancestry.com genetics tests were updated, and it included some more specifically Scottish areas in my region map. So,
nice.
Yeah.
You want to go 24 miles to the other end and turn around and come back. It's an all-day trip to go the length of Loch Ness. There were some old monasteries built along there and some old castles. The Urquhart Castle is there on Loch Ness. But in 1933, some guy decided to put a road in on the edge of the lake.
Vesta Freya, I had not considered that maybe an African swallow carried the Loch Ness monster into the loch. But what is the carrying capacity of a African swallow? Because I'm sure it could carry a coconut on a line between it and another one, but could it carry an entire plesiosaur? That seems implausible.
And because it's real steep and from the mountains, that's not as easy as it sounds. They had to blast a groove into the mountains, like they do up in the mountains of Pennsylvania. You got to cut a V out of the rock to get where you're going. So in 1933, they blasted a roadbed and put a road in. Now, you did not have to go over the mountains to get to Loch Ness. You could just drive along the edge of it. Nice, curvy, windy, scenic tour.
Thanks for the history lesson, Kent.
This picture shows the Loch Ness Road from the other side, as my drawing did on the last one. This author said,
Fate to Great, checked by the copyright. Goodness, Almondo Calvo. Oh, my goodness, checked by the copyright. Thank you. Who's been a member for 14 months and is at the amniote level, says, just get yourself an air-conditioned anechoic chamber like Gamer's Nexus. Also, AIG is a bag of dicks. So here's the thing. I do actually have on my Amazon wishlist a portable recording studio, which would probably help with this problem a lot, but it's also super expensive. So, yeah.
Been 9,000 reported sightings, 3,000 of them recorded. Now, in
How do you know that there were 9,000 reported sightings if only 3,000 have been recorded? How does that work? What happened to the other 6,000? And how do you know they ever existed if no one ever recorded them? If anyone has any ideas about that, because that just sounds like absolute nonsense.
It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
It is nonsensical.
You could say that, the people who reported them didn't have much of a record, Just that you know about them means that they have to have somehow been somewhere that you had access to. Carrie Bronson for $5 says, Nessie is a conspiracy perpetuated by the Inverness Board of Commerce. Yeah, they need to sell more locks.
1933, when the road was put in, there were 52 separate sightings of the Loch Ness Monster.
Oh man, a whole bunch more people who are unfamiliar with a particular lake were driving by that lake that has a reputation for having a monster, and so sightings of the monster went up.
It's crazy.
Who could have ever predicted this except anyone who knows anything about how humans work? If you prime people to think that there's a monster in a lake, and then you shove a whole bunch more people near that lake, you're going to get an increase in the number of people thinking they saw the monster. That doesn't mean that there's a monster. It just means people are suggestible, and pareidolia is a thing.
Many people have guessed that possibly because they were dynamiting along the edge and it was a lot of noise blasting rocks into the lake, it disturbed whatever was in there. Who knows? The creature certainly could have swum out.
I mean, yeah, it probably did disturb whatever was in there, but what that means is it disturbed a bunch of fish. Just regular old fish, including one species of eel that's never been seen by anyone. Because eDNA studies were done, and basically the only surprise was that there was an eel species living in the loch that no one had ever spotted. And as far as I know, to this day, no one has ever actually seen it, but it shed DNA, so it must exist. But, you know, interestingly, there were no bits of anomalous lizard or reptile DNA that were unexplained that were found in the eDNA study. Which means, if the Loch Ness Monster exists, and if it's a plesiosaur, it is somehow just not ever shedding any DNA. Which, given that you shed DNA anytime any skin flakes off, or you just, release any saliva, or any blood comes out, or, you release waste in any way, it seems very hard for an animal to exist in a place and not shed DNA. So,
Especially an animal so big.
Yeah, exactly. If the Loch Ness Monster existed, we would know about it by now, because of the eDNA studies, as well as the numerous sonar expeditions that have run the entire length of the loch and not found anything that could be reasonably construed as a Loch Ness Monster.
Out to the ocean, because it has access back and forth to the ocean from Loch Ness. Today, in the year 2000 here, it's a little over 11,000.
Okay, so this is the year 2000. Okay, so now we know for sure. I was thinking late 90s when he said that the guy was mounting his expedition in 2001, 2002, but now we hear that this is from the year 2000. The year that everyone thinks the millennium ticked over, even though it didn't, because that was 2001.
And reported sightings of the Loch Ness Monster. This...
I'm sorry, is that...
tabloid?
Is he citing the Weekly World News?
It's tabloid here.
Yeah, for those of you who might not be in the US and might not be familiar with this publication, the Weekly World News just makes things up as a joke, right? One of their biggest ongoing series is The Adventures of Bat-Boy, which is a bat-human hybrid. And sometimes he hangs out with aliens. And this is just reported on in the Weekly World News. I cannot imagine a good reason why the Weekly World News is in here. Like, they themselves admit that this is just made up stuff for fun. And that you should not be taking this seriously. Oh, he's saying this one is fake? Okay, I hope so. But why would you bother? I don't know.
This is from In Search of Mysteries. Let's see, I'm sure I've got that here somewhere.
Oh yeah, it says there are some that are no doubt fakes like this one. Okay, fair enough. But
why show this at all?
Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird thing to do.
If you want to read it for yourself, there's tons of books on this topic.
Look, I'm not disrespecting Bat-Boy in terms of as like a character, but he's not real, right? If you have fun reading about the adventures of Bat-Boy, that's fine. Have fun with it. Just don't think it's real.
Topic. Encyclopedia of Monsters. Anyway.
Encyclopedia of Monsters. Sounds super reliable. But all right, we're going to start wrapping it up. We don't really have time to get into much more Loch Ness Monster stuff. We'll save that for next week. So, I want to say thank you to everyone who's here. Oh, Ian Chen Official for $7.99 redo says, breaking news, AIG latest aid package for Ukraine confirmed. A cache of 20 splooge launchers and a battalion of onward Christian soldiers. Nice. We'll take a drink for that. Thank you very much, Ian Chen Official. All right. So, Ben, do you have anything that you want to announce before we get out of here?
I have an Amazon wish list, and I have music that you can download. Links are in the description. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's donated for the GoFundMe that I have, because it's overwhelming to say that. So thank you.
All right. And also, Bent has a Patreon, which is also linked in the description.
Oh, yeah, I have a Patreon, which is linked in the description.
As is his Amazon wish list.
I did mention that.
Okay. All right, well, let's take a look. So, let's see. On Thursday, for $5, Pimplepunk says, well, I was Bigfoot's love slave, and all I got for it was a bag of phalluses labeled AIG. Nice. Take a drink. That sounds unpleasant. Okay, so on Thursday the 3rd, we will be premiering a video, and I'm going to double check which one it is because, why bother remembering things? Yes, it is part 2 of 4 of 3 Ways to Lie About Human Evolution featuring David Menton. This one is called Some Gorillas Are Human, because according to the definition that David Menton gives for what a human is, some gorillas seem to meet that definition, which is weird to me, but hey, it's his definition. So that will be premiering at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern on Thursday the 3rd. Saturday the 5th is currently still planning to be a Gish with Vish, although I believe the 12th will not be, because Vish will be away, Vishanti will be away. And then on the 8th, currently the plan is another Kent with Bent, although I may end up doing jury duty stuff, and so I don't know how well that'll mesh with that. So we're going to play that a little bit by ear and see what's going on there. So, yeah, hopefully that isn't a problem. But hey, who knows? And that's getting us to 1 week out, so I am ready to get out of here. If you are a channel member or a patron, you have access to the supporters Discord server, where I will be heading over to very shortly to go watch some Power Rangers in space. We're going to watch 4 more episodes of Power Rangers in space. It's going to be great. We're going to see Andros and Cassie and TJ and all the rest. Ashley, Carlos. I think that's all of them, at least so far. They're going to go have adventures in space. Because one time, Bent asked me, do the Power Rangers ever go to space? Yeah. And I said, boy, do they.
They do.
They do. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all the generosity, all the support to both myself and to Kent Hovind. You are the reason that this channel is keeping up and continues to exist. And I hope to see all of you on Thursday for the premiere. Talk to you later.
Thanks for watching, but before you go, I just want to say a special thank you to my channel members and my patrons, especially those pledging $20 or above.
Kent Hovind, Tapioca Weasel, Denny5252, Elleron Teller, Phil Rivara, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostic Van Manen, Landon Knoll, Mabdy Babby, Monkey They Them, Mrs. Spexinder, San, Sphincter of Doom, and the Venerable Bede.
As you probably know, YouTube is a very volatile platform, and from month to month my income on the channel can swing wildly. But the people you see on screen are directly supporting so that I don't have to worry too much about that, and the channel can keep going as it is, and perhaps even improving. If you'd like to join this team, there are links below to join the channel or in the description to join the Patreon. The Patreon starts as low as $1 a month, and the channel memberships start as low as $1.99 a month. On Patreon, you can even get a discount for pledging annually. If you do decide to pledge, you'll get access to an exclusive Discord server just for channel supporters.
And either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public.
Now, if the annual or monthly pledge isn't right for you, but you still want to support the channel, there is a merch store down in the description, as well as an Amazon wish list, just for me. And if financial support isn't something you can or want to do, then if you still want to help out the channel, please just like and share these videos and make sure you comment on them. It really helps the channel out. Thanks again for watching.